Hello, my loves. Can you believe it's the end of January already? It feels like this month, this start of the year has just absolutely flown by. I feel like I say that every single time we film a wrap up, but still, I've still not got used to writing the date despite already being a month in. I've written 2025 on so many things. How are you guys finding 2026 so far? We are truly in that period of winter where my skin just goes to absolute shit. I have no idea if you guys are going to be able to see it on camera. I really hope not. But if you can see how dry my skin looks right now, please just ignore it. Genuinely, in real life, I look like I'm decaying. It looks like my skin is just falling off my face. That's not good. This is why I don't normally wear foundation in winter. Does anyone else have these problems, or just me with like the driest skin known to mankind? I hope your January has been good. I hope your skin is hydrated, and I hope you've read some good books, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. I had a decent start to the year, I would say. I felt like I hadn't read a lot, but I think I was just reading at a more comfortable, relaxed pace. I think that's kind of an energy I want to bring in to 2026, actually. I also reread quite a few books this month. I think actually the majority of books that we're going to talk about today are rereads. Some of them just because I needed to refresh my memory before reading the next book in the series, and some of them just because I wanted to, because I wanted a nice start to the year. I really enjoyed it. I don't normally reread books very often, but it's been quite nice. So maybe 2026 will be the year of doing more rereads as well. We have 6 books to talk about today. Some rereads, some fantasy, a DNF. Settle in, get comfy, get a drink. Let's talk. So firstly, straight into the fantasy, a series that I was hoping would be something enjoyable, a series to get into following the end of my beloved Fae Guardian series, or the end for now. And that is the Serpent and Dove series by Shelby Mahurin. Now, you might remember last year, at some point, I read the like little spin-off series, the little spin-off duology from this series. The Shadow Bride? Is that what it was called? I don't remember. I read it because vampires, and I thought I wouldn't need to know the rest of the story to be able to enjoy it, and I didn't. Honestly, I was fine. Was already somewhat familiar with the world, vaguely knew the characters, so why not read the original trilogy and fill the gap that my Crow Boys have left in my heart. This is set in a fantasy world where witches are banned, with some ode to the actual witch trials that happened. There are direct quotes from, what was that twat's name? What was his name? Like the witch hunter general? Or was it the retranslation of the Bible that they did that had the "thou shalt not suffer a witch to live" quote? Was it from the Bible? I don't remember. Just yet more reasons to hate King James. But anyway, very much taking a lot from that and from, I suppose, actual history, but not in any way, shape or form actually historical fiction. This is very much fantasy, just taking inspiration from that. Our main character is Lou, who is a witch and just trying to survive, trying to keep her identity hidden, and this results in her getting involved in some petty crime, mainly stealing and things like that. She's quite feisty. She will use her powers when needed, but tries really hard not to, so she doesn't get discovered by... There is like an actual name for them, the witch hunters, in this, but I don't remember what it is. But obviously she's trying to like fly under the radar of them. When a heist goes wrong, she does end up drawing the attention of the witch hunters, specifically Reed Diggory. Her and Reed have a little bit of an altercation in order to save himself from the accusations she's made against him. The only solution that the Archbishop can come up with is that Lou and Reed have to get married, because of course that's the only solution they could come up with. And so then the book is basically Lou trying to hide the fact that she's a witch, Reed trying to be a witch hunter, them kind of hating each other, but like obviously like there's development in their relationship. That's the book. In my opinion, this was actually a decent start to a series. I rated this 3 stars. It wasn't groundbreaking, it wasn't amazing, but I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the world, and as someone who, I don't even know that I would necessarily say I was brought up Catholic, because I wasn't really, but I was born into a Catholic family, attended Catholic schools, and so a lot of the first half of my life was very Catholic. So having the like religious element there, having all of that, I did find quite interesting. I'm not really in any way, shape or form religious now, but I still for whatever reason find those themes kind of interesting. Lou was an interesting character. I was at times infuriated by her decision-making processes, but we got enough of her backstory, enough depth and development for her decisions to make sense. She's just very much been her whole life trying to survive, you know, dealing with a lot of unresolved trauma, while like you watching it not in the situation can be like, oh my god, why are you saying that? Stop lying, like stop doing all of this. This is clearly not going to end well. You can understand why she's doing it all and how that's just like her default response after years of that being the way she got by and managed to survive. And I would say it was quite similar with Reed as well. Reed I found more infuriating, but again, I could understand the reasoning for everything he was doing. So where he's a witch hunter, he's been brought up in their little witch hunter community. I don't know, they all live in some place and there's obviously a lot of religion there. The Archbishop is like very influential in his life. Reed will say and do some truly bigoted things like in the context of this world, and you're just like, God, you are awful. But it's understandable why he's doing it, because he has basically been indoctrinated into this life since he was a child. So he genuinely does believe all of these things that he's been told. It's not the, you know, as they really did in real life with the witch trials, it's not like they were just trying to get rid of members of society that they deemed not worthy, and they could easily do that by claiming they were witches. He genuinely believes they are evil and harm people and soulless and all of that. Although his opinions and things, you're like, oh, Reed, no. You can understand why he has them. With both of them having those kind of backgrounds, their interactions were quite interesting. They're very, very different in how they obviously were brought up and survived in the world and developed. And so sort of seeing them interact was quite interesting. Their conversations were, and their development as a pair, but also their separate developments, I think were done quite well. So basically, I was quite looking forward to actually reading the next one of this. Unfortunately, everything went downhill from there. The next book in the series, Blood and Honey, this is a complete continuation of where we've left off in the previous book, and not a huge amount happens from what I remember. It does feel a little bit like it falls into like middle book syndrome, where it's okay, it's kind of there, it's needed to fill things out and to then get to the conclusion of the third book, whatever that would be, but it is a little slow and fillery, if you know what I mean. That I can deal with. What I could not deal with in this book, and what I was really, really disappointed by, was it seemed like every single ounce of character development that we got in the first book, forgotten. I don't know who these characters were in Blood and Honey. Lou was awful. She was making awful decisions, but not in the way that it made sense like it did in the first book. She was just being awful, and for no real reason. It didn't fit with the things that happened. It didn't fit with her previous development or her relationships. Like, she was just awful. And similarly with Reed, like, I don't know who that man was. He was so irritating, and not even like in the same way he was just talking and acting as a product of his upbringing in the first book. In this book, God, this man could not shut up, feeling sorry for himself about literally everything, when, I mean, as much as I've said Lou was making some horrific decisions, like really Lou was the one that should have been feeling sorry for herself based on a lot of the things that happened in the first book. I genuinely got to somewhere between like 70 and 80% of the way through this book, and I DNF'd it because I could not deal with Reed's fucking pity parties anymore. I don't know what happened. It was really disappointing because the first book was so promising, and I was actually like, oh, this could actually be a decent series. And potentially then I can go and reread the vampire ones and things will make more sense, but no, I just couldn't finish it. I may potentially go and reread this at some point. I may, especially considering I got so far through it. I do have hopes that it is just middle book syndrome. Anyone who's read this whole series, like, firstly, do you agree with me about the like weird changes in characters in the second book compared to the first? But also, like, is there hope? If I go back and read this, does the third book get better? Is the third book living up to the promise of the first one, or is this just another series like the Atlas 6 series where it just slowly declines? as you go through. Let me know if you have read it, because I'm on the fence about whether to go back and continue this series or not. Okay, so after DNFing Blood and Honey, I felt like I needed something very different. I felt like I needed a break from fantasy, and also I felt like I needed something that would like genuinely give me something back. I'd already been thinking about rereading Letters to a Young Poet this year. Kind of wanted it to be like one of my first reads of the year, and so I thought, you know what, after Blood and Honey, this is a perfect time to read it. I've talked about Letters to a Young Poet before. It is one of my favorite books of all time. It's very, very short. It is a collection of letters from the poet Reyne Rilke to another young poet who asks his advice on his own writing and his own poetry, and then it sort of develops into more of this like long distance friendship, and the letters become less about writing and more about just generally life and relationships and sadness and grief. I personally found these letters deeply, deeply impactful the first time I read them. I think I read them at a very important part of my life. When did I read it? I think I read it 2 years ago. Genuinely a book, even though I think it's only like 80 pages, it's left the biggest impact on me, I think, out of any book I've ever read. And I don't just mean like I enjoyed it and I think about it like, you know, with some of my other favorite books like Dracula, for example. I do think of Dracula quotes on a daily basis, and it is something that I think will always stick with me, but I don't think it fundamentally changed the way I look at things or process things, and genuinely Letters to a Young Poet did. This might just be because for most of my life, I was the kind of person that would rather just avoid their emotions rather than actually feeling them. Just getting real for a minute. I think I read this when I was honestly going through, like the first time, I think I read this when I was honestly going through one of the most difficult periods of my mental health in my life, and I think it just really helps me accept emotions and like see and just like change the way I was thinking about approaching things a little bit. It was very, very impactful, and so I decided to reread it because I thought now in my life would be a good time. And do you know what? It was just as impactful. I think I took similar things away from it, but also I think different parts stood out to me now, where obviously it's 2 years in the future, things have changed, my processing and outlook on things have changed quite a lot, and so I think I did pay attention to slightly different things. It made me cry. I can't remember if I cried the first time, but it made me cry, and I would really, really recommend this, even if you don't want writing advice. Like, it's only the first few letters that are about writing, and then after that it kind of delves into other things. I don't know if this would be better for people of a certain age, bearing in mind like Reyne Rilke, I'm pretty sure was only like, he wasn't that old when he wrote this. He was like maybe 26. So if you are further in your life and already have a lot of life experience and are very well adjusted mentally and good at recognizing your feelings, good at processing them, good at reflecting, then this probably won't have as big of an impact on you as it did on me. If you are at all like me and just pretend the feelings don't exist, then, you know, maybe try it. I don't really know how to put into words how much I love this book, but I think it's a book that I will probably reread many times, and every time I read it I'll probably get different things from it. It's just wonderful, and it was 5 stars this time, just the same as it was the first time. Moving away from that, I think going from Letters to a Young Poet to the next book I read really shows like the duality of a reader, honestly. Because, you know, I finished Letters to a Young Poet, like, you know, spiritually awakened, reconnected with my emotions, just feeling really great. And I was like, God, what do I need after this? And naturally, the answer was the omegaverse. This is A Pack for Autumn by Emilia Emerson. I did read this purely just because Becky said she was reading it, and she was like, oh, it's quite good, and it was on Kindle Unlimited. And I was like, do you know what? I've never really been an omegaverse girl. You know, back in the height of my fan fiction reading days, I never really read much omegaverse. If I stumbled upon it by accident, then sure, I'd read it, but it wasn't something I like actively sought out. And I thought, you know what, let's try it. Why not? 2026 is the year of reading different things, so let's read this omegaverse book. I did not like it, but I don't think I didn't like it because it was a omegaverse. I think I just didn't like this book. So a very brief summary, because like literally nothing happens in this book. This is pure, if we're using fanfiction terms here, this is pure PWP. Well, maybe there's a little bit of plot, but not very much. Essentially, a grumpy Omega called Olive moves to this small little town where clearly there's a thriving community, as there apparently is in all small towns in these books, but she like literally hates everyone and doesn't want anyone to talk to her or be friends with her. She moves there to be the lighthouse keeper, but then she accidentally attracts the attention of 3 very attractive alphas.
I am the Alpha.
This was so nearly a DNF. I actually don't know why I didn't DNF this. So I like half read it, half listened to the audiobook, and I think the only reason I finished it was because I was doing my nails and I was like, I want something to listen to while I do my nails, and I've only got like an hour of this left, so I may as well just finish it. My issues with it. I think all of my issues with this book can be primarily looked at through the characters, the development of them, and the development of their relationships. So let's start with Olive. Olive, yeah, she's grumpy. She clearly has some issues. She's described as having some health issues. On the blurb, or like the little about, it says it's supposed to be like reminiscent of PMDD, but like the Omega version of it. So she basically gets depressed leading up to her period, like proper depressed, and she's had some bad experiences in the past with previous alphas, and she's just real grumpy. She hates everyone. She doesn't want to talk to anyone. Her whole thing is like, I don't know how to talk to people, and I don't want anyone to talk to people, and I'm just gonna live here on my own, and I'm gonna be really rude to everyone who tries to talk to me so that they won't talk to me. I'm like, look girl, we've all been there. I can understand that. What bothered me was that she went from that for like 3-4 chapters, it really wasn't very long, to I'm gonna have a threesome with these alphas. Despite the fact up until that point she was like, I literally hate them, I don't want anything to do with them, I want them to leave me alone, I'm not getting attached. And it was like, go, what? Where did that come from? Like, it was just so sudden. There was no proper development or build up of this relationship. It was just like, I hate them, I don't want them anywhere near me, to, oh, okay, I am gonna be absolutely feral for all of them, which, look, I'm not familiar with the omegaverse. Is that how it works? I don't really know, but it just didn't feel any way remotely satisfying as a development of these relationships. Then we come to the 3 alphas. I cannot tell you any of their names, and the reason for that is because there is no difference between any of these 3 men. Literally none. We get points of view from all of them, and every single time I would get midway through one of their chapters and be like, I could not tell you which guy this is. I have no idea. They had no differentiation in voice. Their personalities were all so similar. Their thoughts were so similar. It was like it was just the same guy copy and pasted 3 times merely for there to be 3 guys. They were all so one-dimensional and the same. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I did not like it. I did not enjoy it. I think this is described as like a cozy omegaverse series. So I know there is further ones in the same town with her other little Omega friends. Don't think I'll be reading them, even though Becky did tell me the second one is a fair bit better than the first one. It's not that I don't trust you, Becky, it's just that I don't trust the author. The only positive thing I will say, this book gave me a far deeper appreciation of how conservative Ali Hazelwood actually was in her use of the word not. Then we come on to another reread, probably because I was like, that was so bad, I need something that I know I'm going to enjoy, and what would I enjoy more than rereading The Company of Vengeful Crows, aka The Dangerous Crow Boy, by my love, Lana Pecherczyk. In case you've missed my recent obsession with this, I read The Dangerous Crow Boy, this book, which is the 10th book in the Fae Guardian series after it got like really popular on Tumblr and everyone was like laughing about The Dangerous Crow Boy and his plastic girlfriend. And I read that without reading any of the previous books, and while I enjoyed it and kind of knew what was going on, I then went and read all of the previous 9 books and 2 novellas and fell in love with the series. I wanted to reread this. One is like, again, a book that I knew I would enjoy to like set the year off right, but also so that I could get like the full context of everything and like properly understand everything. And boy, did it just add to the experience of having read all of the other books first. I love these books so much. In case I haven't already talked about them enough, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail about this series or what it's about because I have talked about it a few times, and if you want to know more about the actual series in this book, I did a whole video on The Dangerous Crow Boy and why he got so popular on Tumblr, so go and watch that. Just to briefly gush about this book one more time, we have different sets of 3 three types of fae. We have the wolves, we have the vampires, we have the elves, and then we have the crows. And like the crows just, they are the best out of all of them. I love all of the characters in this series, and I genuinely enjoyed every single one. But the crows specifically, like the dynamic of the three crow boys, their backstory, their like relationships with each other, there's betrayal, there's like brotherhood, there's trauma. Oh, it's just so good. I just love these crow boys so much, and it's getting embarrassing the amount of times I have cried over them. It's actually not. I'm fine to be emotionally invested in this series and these silly little characters. I'm so glad I reread this. It added so much context and depth, and oh my god bless my absolutely atrocious memory, because there was like quite a significant plot reveal or like twist in this book that I had completely forgotten about while reading all of the others, and I got to it and was like, oh my god, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
And also means so much more now that I've got all the previous context. It was just really good. It was really good. I would really recommend that everyone reads this series. It's amazing. It's really good. Oh, this was also 5 stars in case it wasn't abundantly obvious. There's a lot of firsts this month, actually. I've just realized we delved into the omegaverse for the first time, and we also delved into the monster romance for the first time in A Soul to Keep by Opal Reyne. I have wanted to read this book for a while because I saw Ashton from Lo-Fi Book Club talking about it with the Welsh twins. I love the Welsh twins dearly. She was like talking to them about different like monster romances, and some of them were really silly, the ones that she talked about. For example, Morning Glory Milking Farm, which I am also going to read at some point because that book just sounds ridiculous. This one, A Soul to Keep, actually sounded quite interesting. The premise of this book is there's humans in the world who are terrified of demons. Demons live in like this specific part of the world, in like this forest, and they eat humans. There is a specific type of demon who aren't really quite demons, they're like higher demons called Duskwalkers. And there's one specific Duskwalker whose name I have forgotten, but he has like a skull face. He doesn't actually have a real face, kind of human body, but there are certain parts of him that are not very human. He comes every decade or every century, I can't remember what the time frame is, to Armengalria's village or sort of other surrounding villages to take a bride. So he takes one human in exchange for him putting protection over that village for the next decade or century, however long the period is, which means that demons will not attack that village. So the village people, So the townsfolk obviously happily give away a young bride to go and live with him, and the brides are usually like volunteers or willing to go. However, this time when he's due to arrive, we have Rhea. Rhea has been in her town deemed like a doom magnet. I can't remember what they actually call her, but as in like she just brings bad luck. Everyone's scared of her and doesn't want to be near her because they think being around her will cause them to get attacked by demons, because when she was younger, her entire family were killed by demons and she was the only one that managed to survive, and everyone in the town is a bit like, why did they just leave you? That's a bit weird that you survived. Clearly you're bad luck. Which I guess kind of makes sense, but also kind of doesn't really make sense. So they've been looking for an excuse to get rid of Rhea for ages, and when this Duskwalker turns up, they're like, you're going to be our sacrifice this year. You're getting out of this village, and we will also then get the protection from the Duskwalker for the next however many years. Rhea does not want to be the sacrifice, but she doesn't really have a choice, so she goes. And so then obviously the book is Rhea being taken, Rhea being in the demon world, Duskwalker man kidnapping Rhea, and obviously it's a romance, so the relationship develops. I am quite conflicted about how I feel about this book. In the end, I settled on 3 stars, and I think for the most part I did enjoy it, and I probably will read at least the next book in the series. I don't know if I'll read the whole one. I think I'll need to read another one to make a full judgment on whether I'm going to read more of it. Here are my thoughts, right? So for the most part, I did find it enjoyable. I liked Duskwalker Man. I liked other demons that came up in this story as well. We didn't meet a huge amount, but we met some. There's another Duskwalker we meet, and he's really stupid and sweet. I liked Rhea as well for the most part, but I do feel like one of my issues comes in with her actions. One of the biggest issues I had was in the beginning, obviously Rhea's like, I don't want to be the bride. I don't want to be here. I'm going to try and run away from this Duskwalker and go and live on my own, away from the village where everyone hates me and away from this Duskwalker who's going to eat me. So that's what we get. Like, we get her motivation is that she wants to flee and be free. Makes sense. Reasonable motivation. The issue I have is, like, she jumps back and forth. We'll get like a chapter where she's like, oh, this Duskwalker man is actually not eating me. Oh, this Duskwalker man is actually being quite nice to me. Maybe he's not so bad. And then the next chapter she'll be like, I'm running away. Like, there's just such inconsistency with her thoughts that her wanting to escape and her wanting to flee didn't ever really feel very believable to me at any point. I think we could have had a slower realization of her realizing that the Duskwalker is actually not going to eat her, like that relationship development happening more gradually, especially considering like she has been told her whole life that demons are horrific. Her entire family were killed by demons. Like, you would think it would take her longer than literally the journey from her town to the Duskwalker's home, where she's already starting to be like, oh, he's actually okay. It just never felt very believable that she actually wanted to escape. And I think because of that, the relationship then just didn't really feel super satisfying, because I was like, yeah, I know Rhea that you didn't want to leave. I know that actually he's fine and not going to eat you. Everyone knew this from like the second chapter. There was also some like humorously bad writing at times. There was just a few parts that I was like, it brought me out of the story and made me laugh, but I found it humorous. Like I said, I found it quite funny. It didn't like annoy me or anything, and it wasn't happening often enough that it was ruining the story for me. Like, a couple of examples I can think of: Duskwalker man saying, her soft smile softened. I'm pretty sure I've remembered that correctly. That is a direct quote. The next one, I think I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much it. Duskwalker saying, you ate your breakfast in the dirt yesterday. And Rhea in her head going, he's referring to yesterday when I ate my berries in the garden. Thank you so much, Rhea. I would have never known that's what he was talking about if you hadn't told me that. Thank you. There was one specific part as well that I really didn't like. I don't think it was intended to come across this way in the nicest way possible. I just don't think it was written well enough for it to come across the way I think the author was intending for it to come across. I don't think this is super spoilers. Like, I'm not going to give details, but there's potentially some spoilers here. So if you want to read this book and you don't want to know anything that happens, I'll keep it as vague and brief as possible. Then just skip to like wherever I put here. At one point in the book, she meets a previous human woman that the Duskwalker took as one of his brides. They're talking and the woman is saying like how awful it was living with him and how there's no shame in Rhea for like having slept with him, because like she knows she just had to do it to survive, and like she did the exact same thing and it was awful and she like hated every second of it, and like she can't believe that he did that to her, essentially. This character, this bride, this previous bride, it's supposed to be portrayed as being basically just a bitch. She's supposed to be manipulative, horrible, cruel, and Rhea's whole thoughts are like, I can't believe she's being so mean about my Duskwalker. Like, he built her a house and he like did all these things for her and he was really nice, and she's just saying like she hated every second of spending time with him. And then she like specifically she says like, yeah, but did you ever say no to him, when they're specifically talking about her having slept with him? And I was just a bit like, oh no, I don't like that. That made me be like, oh, I'm gonna give the author the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they were meaning it to sound the way I interpreted it to sound, which is, yes, this character is supposed to be horrible and just cruel for the sake of it, but if we are looking at this woman saying she was taken pretty much without a choice to live with this man, why the fuck does it matter if he built her a house? Why the fuck does it matter if he said no, or if she said no or not? The bride specifically says like it was either do that or die. Like, if this woman is supposed to be a bitch and she's lying, then you need to make that clearer that she was doing that, because the way that part came across and was phrased made it sound like, oh yeah, but you didn't actually say no though, did you? Even though she was clearly in a situation she didn't want to be in and was kind of forced to be in. I just really didn't like that. It made me quite uncomfortable. Again, I'm giving the author the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they intended it to come across like that because of how this character then goes on to act later. But I do think that could have been worded and handled better because Rhea in that moment comes across as really victim blaming, and it's not good look. So I think basically that's where a lot of my conflict comes in. Like, there was some kind of bad writing, some kind of questionable things there from Rhea, and just like kind of disappointing relationship and character development. This just to me feels like a book that maybe needed a little bit more work, and my hope would be that then the further books in the series get better. Again, let me know if you've read this series and what you think of like further books in it. Is it worth it to continue me reading? Any opinions would be appreciated. Help me decide whether to continue it or not. And then for our final book, it is another reread, and this is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. You might remember me saying in my tier ranking video that I literally had no memory of this book. It was as if I hadn't actually read it. I don't really know what happened. I know I always say how bad my memory is, but even with my memory not being the best, I still usually remember at least some details of books, but this one I could literally remember nothing about. And my hold for the second book in the series, Brimstone, came up from the library, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get by with just a summary. I'm going to need to reread this whole book. So I did. I listened to the audiobook. I would really, really, really recommend the audiobook. It is one of the best duet narrations I've ever listened to. Is it called a duet narration? It's when they have a male and female narrator, and the male narrator does every male voice, even in chapters from the female's point of view. I think this is the best way to do audiobooks, and I've seen a lot of people agree, but I have listened to some before. It sounds very jarring the way they've like cut in the other person's voice, and it doesn't like flow very well, but this one is done superbly, and it just really makes the listening experience more enjoyable. So now that my memory has been refreshed, I can actually tell you what happens in this book. Our main character is Sarah. She lives in this like poorer district of this kind of fantasy world. She lives in the human world, is unaware that Fae exists. The place that she lives in is seen as like the plague town, so like no one's allowed in or out, and like water's rationed, money's not easy to come by. It's just like a pretty shit place to live, and she's basically got by supporting herself and her younger brother, who she is deeply protective of, by stealing. She gets a little bit too greedy, a little bit too overambitious, and she tries to steal a guardian's sword. Her brother Hayden nearly gets blamed for taking the sword, and so she obviously steps up, and that ends up with her being placed in front of Queen Madra and potentially being executed for stealing this sword. Somehow though, she finds herself in a Fae world where her experience working in what is it called? The place where they like melt metal. For some reason, butcher keeps coming to my mind. Is obviously not a butcher, but a forge. Her experience of working in a forge back in Zilvarin, the human city, and her unknown magical abilities are paramount to the Fae being able to potentially win a war. So they basically say, stay here, help us do this, and then you can go back to your brother and your home. I did really like this. I'm very glad that I reread this because I did actually really enjoy it. I think I need to stop saying that I don't like romantasy, because evidently I do. I just think I like quite specific romantasy, and this is one that I do really enjoy. I liked all of the characters in this. I think the development of the relationships was actually done quite well, and I think the plot, the pace, the world was done decently. The actual plot itself of this is relatively slow, but because we are essentially learning everything about the Fae world alongside Ceres, it doesn't necessarily feel slow. I also think Ceres is a very good example of a good female main character in a romantasy. She isn't stupidly overpowerful. She's not stupidly overconfident. She's not tiny and weak. She's never once described as being tiny, I don't think. One of the things I appreciate the most is that she actually continues to think about her brother and her people back home after getting to the Fae world, because I think it's very, very common in stories like this where like the female main character will be like, my family is so important to me, all I care about is getting back to my family and helping them, and then as soon as they meet some Fae dude, they're like, what family? Who? And they like never think about them again. It's a constant, consistent thing that Ceres is thinking about Hayden and wanting to get back to him, and that continues to be her motivation motivation throughout, despite her starting to, you know, develop connections with the Fae in this world, despite her feeling a sense of responsibility and actually genuinely wanting to help people in this world, she still continues at her core to mainly be focusing on her brother, which I appreciate. Kingfisher, our main love interest, he's also fine. Like, okay, look, yes, he has dark hair, yes, he has shadow powers, but he doesn't feel just like a reincarnation of every single other male main character in Romantasy. Yeah, he's a little emo boy, 100%. He's got some trauma, he's got some issues, he's grumpy, he keeps people at arm's length, but he's not overly angsty like many other male main characters I could name. I think one of the things that helps the most is we do not get a single chapter from his point of view. I genuinely think that is the downfall of a lot of Romantasy for me. Getting the points of view of the male main characters always makes me hate them, but we don't get any from him, and that's fine. I don't want to see his internal thoughts. I don't want to see his inner world. I really hope we don't get points of view from him in Brimstone because I don't want it to ruin him. All of the side characters are decent as well. Specifically, Carrion Swift. I don't know how I forgot about this character, how he could just completely leave my memory, because Carrion Swift is my favorite character in this whole series. He is exactly the kind of character I love. Sarcastic, he's funny, he takes everything as a joke, is a little bit promiscuous, if you will. He has some loose morals, but he's just here to have a good time, and he's almost there as like the comic relief, but you can tell he's got some secrets and some backstory of his own. These characters are always my favorite, and they always die every single time without fail, so I can't wait for that to happen in one of the future books, because it's going to. I've been burned far too many times. The only criticism I really will give of this book, there is a bit of the classic, there's this woman who's just a bitch, and that's her whole character. There are some good other side characters who are female in this, and they're fine, but one of the main other female characters that we see in this story is like, oh, she's just got such a bad attitude, oh, she just needs to get over it, oh, she's just throwing a tantrum over nothing. It made me dislike Ceres a little bit, like specifically when she's talking about this character, because you know what, this character's reactions, I'm sorry I don't remember her name, yeah, they're a little bit over the top, but they're also completely fucking understandable. She has been fighting in an army in a war for years, and then all of a sudden this fucking human shows up and is for some reason the most important person in the camp, and she is like, who is this? One of her weapons gets destroyed and she's understandably really upset about it, and everyone's like, you deserve that, actually, you just need to calm down. I assume this character is gonna have some development in further books if she continues to be in it, but it's like, can we not just be like, oh, she's so dramatic, she's a bitch, and she has a bad attitude, when actually her reactions to things are kind of understandable. Aside from that though, very much enjoyed, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the next one. That is everything that I have read this month. All in all, I would say a pretty decent month. I think it's been good because there's been a lot of rereads of books that I already know I like. As always, would love to know what you've been reading this month, what you started off your year with, how you set the tone for this year in your reading. Please do let me know. And if you've read any of these books that I've mentioned, as always, I would love to know your thoughts on them. If we agree, if we disagree, I'm not going to be offended if we disagree, don't worry, it's fine. That is all from me today, so I hope wherever you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.